right, 7 o'clock, let's call the meeting to order. Who we got on the, is it Jeff on the line and Gabe?
Yep.
Jane. All right, let's start with the meeting minutes that were distributed. Any comments or suggestions?
Fix my.
He fixed the spelling mistake.
The motion to approve is distributed.
I'll so moved.
I'll second it for discussion.
Second.
Discussion. For discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed. The treasury report, we'll get an update when Bill gets here. Plans report.
It was distributed, but if anybody has any questions on anything. No.
I had any questions?
There wasn't many updates from last time.
No, I don't think I took your name in vain at all, reading the whole thing.
Great. That's what I aim for.
All right, A&R plans, approval not required. We do have two here in front of us.
Yep, you have one for 27 Cider Mill and then another for Kiwanis Beach Road. So we got Jeff Stefanik on for which one? Kiwanis?
Kiwanis Beach Road.
All right, I do have a couple questions on it. One is the straight line frontage. You have it listed as a number here, but you don't have the line. And we'll need that, the line should be corner to corner.
Yeah, the dimensions on both lots, we can add the line to the Mylar. We can do that very quickly.
That would be great, because I noticed on the Cider Mill Lane one, it was exactly that way, with straight line frontage on the front, how it shows right here.
Mhm.
Same thing as on the Cider Mill Lane, just have them matched together. The other question was what? Do we have any other questions on that one? On Kiwanis Beach?
That was the only.
It's an approved public road, right? Approved town road?
Yes, the deed reference is on the road itself. In 2018, the town accepted Kiwanis Beach Road as public.
Okay, it was 2018.
That was before my time.
Uh,
Okay.
I remembered it being accepted and I couldn't remember back when.
Yep.
All right, so you have your surveyor's stamp, you have your locus, you have your data table, zoning table.
Slopes, proposed driveway profiles.
Yeah, there's no setback on the driveway. That's the only place it could go. Just, it's close to the line. I mean, there's no regulation on the line.
Yeah, it's preliminary, but it is kind of steep as you go towards the beach there.
Okay. Yeah, we were looking at the slope, the 9.8. And we have no regulations that tell you to stay under a certain slope. Unless it's obviously unsafe. And I don't think that's unsafe, so. And you have, all right, so I would say that I have no problems with Kiwanis Beach Road, except for that straight line thing.
We will, if you guys would vote to endorse the plan tonight, I'll bring
Yeah.
a marker to the town hall tomorrow and put a straight line right on there, right in front of Mike as a witness.
And the other one, Cider Mill.
Jeff could not do so. That's
Yeah, I was gonna say.
DNL design.
What?
DNL design did Cider Mill.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. All right, if you bring that in, we'll make a motion
Yes, that's
to
what-
approve it subject to the correction. The additional line. Is there a motion?
I'll sec, oh, I thought you made the motion.
Yeah, I should be making. one.
Okay, I'll move, so moved. Second.
Oh. All right, any discussion on the motion, which is to sign the plan, sign the plan subject to the straight line frontage being put on. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, welcome. Okay, on Cider Mill Lane,
I know you guys, this is the local, got Cider Mill Lane, even though they're not the design team.
Yes, yeah, we're here, we're not here for that technically tonight, but I think John should be on, or Peter. should
Oh yeah,
go.
John said he was gonna join.
Yeah, John or Peter
Yeah,
should be on.
Oh, Jeff, you're all set.
And I'm going to leave the meeting. Okay, I will talk to you tomorrow, Mike.
See you then.
Thank you all.
I won't be in the office until noon, 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
thank you. Okay, this is two lots on Cider Mill Lane. We have our zoning, buildable area locus, survey stamp. One thing we don't have is the location, where the houses are going. And it says in the bylaw where the building location is. To me, that's the house. So we have, this one needs to know where the house is going on lot 2. And we have an existing single family to be raised, but that doesn't tell me where the new one's going, that it's gonna be below the minimum lot width, which should say 80%. The number is good, but it's really 80% is the rule. So it should just say 80% line. So we need where the new house is gonna be built. If it's gonna be built in the same location, then that's what they should say. There should be a note line saying house to be put in the same location, same general location. But this one doesn't have it all. But so that's the only thing I would say. I would ask that this be changed and those locations be put on. Otherwise, I would have to say we have inadequate access and should be denied. Is there anybody that represents the applicant here?
I'm here, John Mastriani, General Manager, but we thought the engineer was gonna be on, so I apologize.
Well, that's all it would be, is just putting where the houses are going.
We'll take care of that.
All right, so is there a motion to approve this subject to the housing location, the building location being added?
Well, the only question with that is, do we know the building location is gonna be where it should be?
Good point.
Yeah, we should wait.
You should wait until we
Yeah.
see where the building is going to be,
Yeah, because then otherwise you'd have to have them mark up.
because you could put
All right.
it.
I agree.
So,
So next meeting?
Yes.
Good.
I think
Mike, I'll give it to you. His job.
this was submitted on March 21, so we might actually have time.
You got 21 days from then.
Yeah, which so our April 8th meeting, that should be plenty. Yeah, that should be enough time. So you don't have to take action on it, is what I'm saying. You don't have to.
We don't have to call it Sunday to deny it, yes. Okay, site plan, 236 Milford Street. Going for that, anybody here for that?
Oh, no, nobody's on for that. That is just the endorsement of the
Parking spaces?
the decision,
Did we get
the record itself.
did we get the addition that there'll be a professional engineering review of the project, the parking spaces?
Yeah, let me confirm. I have that in here. Conditions when completed, the work will be signed off by a licensed design professional to certify completion of the work in compliance with the approved plan.
Awesome. They were gonna pay for it.
That's the contents, that's the signature page. I noticed I still have you as chair on that because I can scratch it out. It's not sitting back up.
you can just wait another 3 years.
So that was all with that.
Now it says site plan decision to be executed. Is that what we're doing right now?
That's what you're doing right now.
We didn't need to sign the first plan.
Do we, yeah, do we need to find,
This one's getting,
no, the one we.
oh yeah, you do
Well,
need
we
to sign.
should sign it before, after you put the line on.
Oh, then we approve, we vote on it.
Here, do the straight line frontage be put on the plan.
Okay,
We could put it on and trust it. But if he doesn't do it,
Yeah, I have to vote the plan.
we can sign it.
yeah, because otherwise you got to wait till the next meeting or for all that.
Yeah, That's what I thought you were down, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Used to remember.
Yeah. So can we trust you?
And the snow.
Yes.
You want the zoning diagnostics with CMR, hold off on that, or,
No, they're here.
What do you want to do?
well, do you want to sign that first?
Yeah.
It's up to you.
So why don't we just get that done? Just one sign.
Yeah.
And
Sign
you
or
need to
mail it.
use the fancy pen or? use the regular? I haven't seen the alarm here.
There is.
There is.
Hello?
Hello,
Hi, this is John Denard. I had the A&R come in and I lost internet 5 minutes before the meeting. I couldn't even get a call-in number or anything. The A&R.
oh, I'm sorry about that. There was one minor change, you aware of what we voted on, or what we agreed to?
I think you just signed on.
You just signed off.
The
I'm
house,
Just on, I can't get on the Microsoft meeting. I was on it till 6 minutes before the meeting started and the internet went down.
Okay, well, to make a long story short, the planning board requires that the house locations be placed on the plan.
Since when? We
The-
show the driveway to where the garage is going to be.
Well, our bylaws say where the building location will be. Now, the building location where the house is
Bylaw
gonna. So-
we show the driveway is going right to where the garage is going to be. And then I show the
It does-
lot width behind.
Sir, show the location of the house on lot 2, and on lot 1, you're having a house torn down and having another one built. Put the location where that's going, or notify that it's gonna, or put a notice and it's gonna be in the same location.
So you're not signing the plan tonight because of that, because that's not a
That's-
requirement of an. I'm sorry.
It's in the planning board's 81P section. If you didn't read it, go back and read it.
I
Where
have
the
read
building,
it.
it's the driveway will be shown to where the building location is.
So you have to show a driveway on the profile going to the house, but it doesn't say you have to show the proposed houses. It says all existing houses must be shown. I did not show proposed houses on the last one I did that you guys
Then
just
then
signed.
how are you going to identify the building location if you don't put the building down on it?
Because the end of the driveway is right at the garage. I have the
know that.
positioning right on
Sir,
the plan.
the board has made a decision. Would you like to come in to see Mike tomorrow? We'll give
I would.
give the town planner a call and he'll take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, bye.
Well, I didn't have to know what medications to take. Right now.
Sorry about that.
You don't know the size of the building either. I mean, it's just,
Starting to talk about it this afternoon, it was, your regulations say building area, but it makes sense to me that you would use the building location to identify the building area if you haven't otherwise called out the building
Or
area.
draw a little square and put down building area.
Yeah.
But identify the building area.
Yeah.
Usually draw where the house is going.
Yeah.
It's the easiest way, but you can just put a little square in, or a little notation. Here it is.
are you signing?
Okay. Designing diagnostic, CMRPC, that's some good news.
So we got Gabe on the line to help us out with this, as well as Jane from CMRPC.
Welcome.
Hello, good to see everyone. And
Good evening.
Jane is here too. I'm gonna screen share. I just put together a little presentation. But basically, for this year, CMRPC staff, so the town got district local technical assistance to do a zoning diagnostic, which is sort of the first step in a zoning rewrite process. And I'll screen share my presentation and can get into it. All right, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Let me know if, all right. So we'll just go through a few things tonight. We'll go through the project background, the timeline, the roles and responsibilities. I have a few questions for the planning board, and then if there's any more questions at the end, we can talk about that. So several projects in recent years in Upton have identified some limitations in the existing zoning bylaws. Two that I helped work on were the Housing Production Plan and the Affordable Housing Trust Action Plan. Additionally, changes to state requirements, state law, such as MBTA communities multifamily zoning, and changes in local policy have meant that in the last few years there have been multiple changes to the zoning bylaws themselves. This happens in every town, but basically there's we run the risk that there might be contradictions, redundancies, and errors in the bylaws since there have been a number of changes. And so updating the bylaws and reviewing and updating the bylaws to identify any problems with the bylaws and to make sure that the town is totally up to date with state law and in line with local priorities is a process that most towns need to go through occasionally. So the zoning diagnostics will be the first step in this process. We'll work to identify the errors and recommend changes ahead of follow-up zoning rewrite project. And so, like I said, this is a district local technical assistance program. So the planning board issued a letter of support for the project, and Mike helped put together the proposal. So this was passed by the CMRPC committee I think about a month or two ago. So this project will run through the end of the year. And thankfully, the diagnostic process is less in-depth than the actual rewrite process. So there will be kind of a number of steps that we're going to go through to do this. So running simultaneously, Jane and I will be doing a deep review of the existing bylaws, and we'll be looking at case studies and best practices to kind of identify any gaps, any problem areas, and identify recommendations. Additionally, at the same time, I'm going to work with the planning board, mostly be communicating with Mike, and probably reach out to some members of the zoning board of appeals. We're going to try to do a couple meetings with some stakeholders, the zoning board members and towns and relevant town staff to get any input on the current zoning bylaws. Following this review process, we're going to produce an annotated copy of the current zoning bylaws. That'll basically go through everything, give notes, give feedback, and then we'll also produce a diagnostic memo that will kind of walk through what we see as the big and small issues with the zoning bylaws, and we'll give the planning board a map for the zoning rewrite. And this will help us kind of organize and prioritize revisions. And then towards the end of the year in November, we'll deliver the draft diagnostic memo to you, the planning board, and we'll be looking for input and any edits ahead of the project deadline. So roles and responsibilities, like I said, this is a pretty low profile project as these things go. Usually for the rewrite process, we like to put together a committee. We try to get mostly planning board members, but maybe, the zoning board member, select board member, that sort of thing. But this will be mostly a staff driven project, I think. So the planning board will help, tonight we're going to ask to kind of talk about some broad problems with the bylaws and identify and work to identify those. And we might seek to do another meeting with the planning board if we, have any big questions. I think it would be helpful to get some feedback from the planning board on who are some stakeholders we should talk to outside of, planning and zoning and staff. And we'll work with Mike as well to help identify those. And then finally, around November, the planning board will review and approve the draft diagnostic memo. And then the planning department, which I think right now is mostly Mike? We'll be communicating with Mike regularly to kind of talk about the project tasks and any milestones in the project. Mike will help us set up any stakeholder interviews we've identified, and then we can talk to Mike on a regular basis to review the process and provide any local context if we have any questions about, sometimes when we're doing these reviews, we find bylaws that are, you need someone with some local background to understand what they're about. And then staff, CMRPC staff will be providing regular updates on the project tasks and milestones to Mike. We'll be attending, maybe some future planning board and maybe a zoning board meeting or two as needed. We'll facilitate any stakeholder interviews as needed. In the final process, we may provide some sample language or relevant materials as in like an appendix to the diagnostic memo as needed if it helps contextualize recommendations. And then finally, we'll be providing a draft diagnostic memo to the planning board for edits and final approval. So that's the main process. I guess finally, and feel free to kind of get creative. I guess tonight, because we're meeting with you at the beginning of the process, I guess we have a few questions. First, are there any problems with the zoning bylaws that the planning board has had to deal with over the last few years that we should know about going into this. I often find doing these reviews, I like to defer to the planning board and to town staff when, deciding what to fix or how to fix things, because ultimately I'm not the one interpreting the bylaws at the end of the day. And then also, are there any specific focus areas you'd like us to look at? Obviously, we'll be looking at the whole bylaws, but there may be some specific trouble areas or areas where, for example, in I think in the housing production plan and the affordable housing trust plan, two things came up, or something that came up in both projects was that the current dimensional requirements for duplexes require twice the minimum lot size of a single family home. So it's basically very difficult to do a duplex conversion. That's just an example. There are these recurring problems that have come up that we might not know about. And then finally, is there anyone outside of boards and staff that you think we should be talking to ask similar questions to? If there, I don't know if there's developers or anyone who was maybe on the planning board and now is on select board or has retired who might provide us some context on things, that sort of thing.
I actually just have a general question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kate.
Yeah, thank you. I leave it to the chair to be polite. So when we were first discussing this, maybe I was just being simple. I thought the basic fundamental goal of it was to take this whole mishmash of things that have been passed in recent years and update our bylaws. So, the solar is, the solar, so all that stuff is included in it. And what we're also talking about here then is identifying other areas that we would like to see changed, which would probably take a town meeting vote.
Yeah.
So there'll
Any
be,
zoning change required.
so there'll be recommendations coming out of this as well
2/3 majority.
for zoning changes. Okay.
Yeah, so the idea is that you can do a zoning, sometimes we'll call it like a comprehensive zoning rewrite or a comprehensive zoning review. It kind of consists of two parts where you do the review of the bylaw. That's usually staff driven. You say, okay, here's the chapter on dimensional regulations. We notice, minimum lot sizes for duplexes are kind of illogical and you're not going to get any duplexes built. And then usually you can do this. So I'm doing this in other towns. You do it at the same time sometimes, where then you work with a committee, you bring the recommendations and then work on rewrites. But this is kind of the first part of that process.
Gabe, back up again. Why can't we put a duplex in the towns in any of the zones that we have right now?
Basically, something that's come up working on housing policy projects in town is that the minimum lot size, this is just an example, but the minimum lot size for a duplex is twice that of a single family home. So you already have pre-existing lots. I don't know. I don't have the numbers on hand.
I hear what you're saying, but we have most of this town is 80,000 square feet. And a lot of that is fairly close to the center of town. We just did some lots tonight. So could we put in some type of thing that if you have an A&R, you need a minimum of 40,000 square feet, 1 acre zone per unit, so that an 80,000 would fit too, if you had 80 plus. So you could approach it from reducing the number of in the 80,000 and make that a zone where you could do a duplex. Is that correct?
Yeah. The duplex was kind of, that's just a hypothetical that'll probably come up in the.
It's a great one, because if you're looking at reduced costs for housing, it's putting a duplex in, it's putting in the assisted dwelling units. It's allowing apartments over a business. I mean, there's lots of ways to put in inexpensive housing, and duplexes are good. And you could require the 40,000 per unit, but that would still allow you to put in duplexes in a lot of the town. So just something we could look at.
That's an example of something we'd get into.
But through the chair, I want to address Kathy's, or get to Kathy's question, I think. A part of this too is, I think, Kathy, yes, to answer your question, part of this can be a directive to CMRPC to evaluate those newly adopted zoning bylaw sections and make sure that it doesn't create conflicts
Yeah.
elsewhere
Yeah.
in the bylaw,
Yeah.
and to make sure it all melds
No,
together.
together,
Yes.
Yeah.
yes. It's a better way
Yeah.
of saying this. Yeah, okay.
And I have a general question, Dave. It's on the zoning board of appeals authority.
Yes.
Because we can, as a town, zone Route 140 to Milford as a commercial industrial property. And then with 4 different zoning board meetings, it's turned into a residential neighborhood.
Right.
What are the ways to stop the use change once this has gone through from a zoning board, or how else could this be changed once it's put in place?
So you're talking about after something's approved?
Is there anything we're doing here that could be just overruled by the zoning board of appeals?
I'd have to look into that. To be honest, I don't work too much with zoning boards. Usually I work primarily with planning boards. I mean, you could kind of, I would have to look at state law to see what they say, but you could look at, limiting variances. There's things you can, there are things you can do around variances and special permits. That's a big part of, honestly, often the most laborious part of the rewrite is looking at the special permit process and site plan review and stuff. But
Yes.
I mean, I think there's tweaks you could make to variances for sure. I mean,
You've got
yeah,
a 3-member, you got a 3-member appointed board overruling a 2/3 majority of a town vote.
right.
I hate to spend a lot of time on zoning bylaws if they're just going to be overturned
Yeah.
the first time somebody applies.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we can, and Gabe, we can talk about this further through the chair. We can absolutely look into language that would reinforce this zoning bylaw and what it intends to do. Would be an example of that is by adding a small, simple language in there in its own section to just state explicitly that use variances are not allowed.
Perfect. That would do it then.
There's been a practice in the town, I think, prior to me getting here, is that there was this conception that use variances were allowed. And I think that the
Yeah.
town had rating under that understanding, which was incorrect, because you
Yeah, I
need a
think-
provision zoning bylaw that says use variances are allowed, and you do not have that anywhere in your zoning.
But there
bylaw.
have been use variances granted.
Yes, there
All those houses on
Yeah.
140 are all use
Yeah.
variance.
And I think in most towns, the conception of a variance is that you're slightly off the dimensional requirements or little minor things. Let's not prevent anything from going in just because you're 50 feet off of something or 10 feet off of something. But I mean, yeah, I think that would be part of it, is making sure everything is in line with state law. I wouldn't want to recommend something that wasn't, but if I believe we could prevent use variances.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For the CPMRT?
I do know that Mike Penko has mentioned to me a couple of times, he thinks we can tweak our open space subdivision bylaw.
We haven't looked at it in a while.
So from a conservation and open space perspective, it's something I have no doubt they want to be involved in.
We require, the ways that the planning board requires open space is, in any subdivision, we have a provision that says 10% of the area will be set aside as open space.
Mhm.
And most developers do not want to take a subdivision and take 10%, set it aside for the people who have lawns already and have them
Right.
pay insurance and responsibility for something that's not theirs. So we'll generally take, in lieu of that, some contribution or work with our open space folks to do that. But one of the other ways that a planning board can get open space in a subdivision or any kind of a project, or if you could look at our open space provisions and make any recommendations on those?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that can definitely be part of it.
And another thing is in a planning board decision, what can we require for pathways and access? Because we have a lot of state forests and natural places where we have the developers offer us. They work with conservation and they make use of the areas.
Mhm.
Is that something most towns have, or are we behind on that, or?
I mean, that's a good thing to look at. My understanding is if it's a special permit, I think you have a fair amount of leeway. If it's in the bylaws, you have a fair amount of leeway in the requirements. If you want to require that there's access to, if it's abutting a state park or whatever, or a conservation land, and you can require that it has access. You could probably require that open space is contiguous with other protected space. I mean, that seems pretty.
I don't think we have written any specific language to that effect.
That's the kind of thing we're looking to have, so that when they
Yeah.
come in, and if they're next to a conservation or a sensitive area, they'll know up front that they'll have to
Yeah.
provide, hear that.
So a question, at the end, your last bullet point is the
Yes.
stakeholders, that you should reach out to. And I think
Yeah.
Bill has already said that Mike Penko from Conservation, is very interested in being one of those stakeholders. In other communities, what type of stakeholders are involved?
I mean, to be honest, it's usually just you're usually just looking at, when you look at committee makeup, it's usually people, like you have enough people from planning that you don't get quorum. Someone, people from ZBA or other related things. You could have someone from conservation. You could have usually one or two select board members to get the town bylaw. It's different from the zoning bylaws, the bylaw perspective. And then usually, I mean, depending on who is in the mix, I mean, you might look at people who are developers. You don't have to talk to developers, but oftentimes in communities you have people, I mean, usually with planning boards, there's often people on the planning boards who work in other towns as developers. It's pretty common. But yeah, just people who kind of are in land use related fields. Usually the committees, they try to, I mean, I don't think I would just talk to any lawyer, but I know I've been on a couple committees where they seek out people who are on boards who are lawyers. But unless they have direct land use experience, I don't think for a stakeholder interview that's necessary.
But Gene Burnett, because he's a developer and he's with the EBC, and he might be interested in this.
Probably the best time to ask them is after we've come up with something and ask them their opinions on it, involved with that.
Yeah, I always
That
get
makes sense.
sleepy about stakeholder meetings because that's why I asked the question, but there are a couple people I think could really contribute to the conversation. So.
Any questions?
I got Gene Burnett, DPW, Mike Petco.
Yeah, the
How do you
DPW
spell-
contacted because we haven't done
I'll email you, Gabe.
our road
Cool,
layout,
cool.
our cross-section and road layout should be looked at and analyzed to see if we're keeping up to date with how our roads are constructed, our utilities are put in. And the DPW chief would have the best viewpoint as to how we are and also what pipe do we require? I mean, we have some engineers come in and they give us a different type pipe, a water pipe or a sewer pipe that's listed in our bylaws. And they prove to us that it's structurally the same, that it lasts 65 years instead of 60. And if you look at our construction standards that we use for our roadways, would be helpful. And that's where the DPW director would come in handy.
Absolutely.
Just another question, because it's been an ongoing discussion here.
Yeah.
Would this be an opportunity to look at the width requirement for roadways? Or is that a whole different,
That's your
I'm sort of
subdivision rules
thinking
and regulations.
that subdivision?
Yeah.
Okay.
We could look at subdivision stuff. That could be part of it. Jane, do you think that's in the scope?
Not exactly, but I was going to ask if Upton has an MS4 permit for its stormwater.
Does.
Okay.
Yes, so we've worked with a few towns who had hired consultants to do an evaluation of their zoning bylaws and their subdivision regulations to see if they're meeting best practices for their MS4, and found out that I guess from the time that the official letter was sent, the town had 4 years, I believe, to come into compliance. And that some of those recommendations did include narrowing the street widths, trying to reduce impervious area. And so it actually looked at changes to both zoning and subdivision regulations to meet those requirements. So that's something else. I don't know where you are with your MS4 permit. If an analysis has been done like that, but you might want to see about incorporating things that are going to help with your MS4 permit.
Yeah.
Well,
And that
in
stuff's
the,
pretty,
in-
that stuff's pretty straightforward. Like it's the sort of thing we would recommend usually. But it's more technical as well.
And
there's a
when we-
lot, well, there's a lot that goes into a subdivision, whereas it's not zoning. The planning board actually has to look at that particular plan and that,
Yeah.
and look at the site, and depending upon, we have them that go through wetlands and they have to narrow it. Other ones, we have to change it. We can't narrow the road too far to make it unsafe and then a bus can't get through. So the road layout would have to change. But we look at the same, as far as the runoff, conservation and the planning board get the same report. We look at the driveways and the basements, they look at the bugs and the turtles. So, but it's the same real report on impact.
And that wouldn't change existing roadways. That would be for new roadways that would have
Yep.
to comply.
Agreed.
And along that same topic, don't know if the town has been working at all with anyone from DCR regarding updates to the flood maps.
We haven't had any updates in a while.
Okay,
I know those updates get communicated to Conservation Commission via the conservation agent. And I know that FEMA just sent out like a notice of potential changes.
okay. I know they've been working with several other communities in the region. And the person I've been working with at DCR has told these communities that their floodplain bylaw has to comply or conform with the state's model floodplain bylaw. So we're seeing a lot of changes in those bylaws, as well as updating the map numbers, the panel number.
What we've been doing on that is that any project that is below the designated floodplain elevation is required to go through the steps that you just mentioned, floodplain theory studies. So we don't have any specific regulations. We refer to the higher authority. But
Okay, got it.
they mark the level and then they have to comply,
Okay, very good.
the elevation.
And I haven't looked at your zoning bylaws yet, so I don't know yet if you have any special zoning in your village center, like an overlay district.
In regards to what?
Just oftentimes, properties within the village center don't conform to existing zoning. And so
course.
oftentimes, so that those properties will be in conformance, towns will create either a base village district or an overlay that will have different standards than, say, the rural
we reject-
residential areas.
We've rejected overlays due to the difficulties when you have to administer the uses. Which one do you, it's been difficult, which one do you go by? And you end up confusing, and if you have two different houses or lie side by side, they have different rules if one's an overlay. You really have to make it into the zoning and make it set, and then go through your appeals process. Overlays are really hard to administer.
Don't we have a parking overlay in the downtown area?
I don't think so. No, you don't have a parking.
I thought that was a whole
You have,
It's not an overlay, but it's shared, yeah.
you have within the UCBD district, yeah, you have the opportunity to create shared parking, but it's not an overlay district. The,
And
yeah,
that's-
so Jay, to answer that question, the
Percent.
center business district is an underlying district. It's not an
Okay.
overlay.
Okay, yeah, and that's, parking is an issue we've seen with a lot of village centers where, you know, with buildings that are existing, built so close together, they just cannot accommodate the parking on site. So that just creates an issue with trying to get businesses to come into town.
Here too. We have parking issues.
I'm sure. So I don't know if you've thought about any other new bylaws such as short-term rental. Mike, were you already working on accessory dwelling unit, or you're part of our DLTA project?
Yeah, both. Yeah, so
Okay.
the town just approved ADU bylaw that sought to basically just mimic the state law. But the Attorney General is still reviewing that bylaw for some reason. And I'm not bitter about it. Yeah. But yeah, no, we're also a part of that group, you know, anticipating that there may need to be changes, sort of thing.
Okay.
So with seniors and young adults, what a wonderful addition to the zoning is to have that kind of housing affordable. I think it's a great
Absolutely. Yes.
Awesome.
So if there are any other new bylaws that you think the town might need or would be useful, that's something else that we can look at as part of the review.
We have very strict pot laws,
Okay,
and we have one place, I don't even know if it's in business.
Not anymore.
And we have, there's some strict areas that we have, if you could take a look at it, where we too strict on our cell towers is pretty strict.
okay,
Cell tower bylaw and the pot bylaws are both very strict.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if they couldn't be relaxed.
and I'm sure Mike has been keeping you all up to date on any changes with Mass General Law, but if there's anything else that has been updated in the last couple of years that needs to be addressed, we'll also be noting that in the diagnostic report.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, all the big changes happened since I got here. So
There's been a lot the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten away with single family zoning yet.
Yeah, well, yeah,
That's the other
to be
thing we
seen.
talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that won't happen.
We'll see.
Well, I thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, good to see you. Yeah, and if you have any more questions, obviously you can talk to Mike, but you can also email Jane or I anytime. And yeah, have a good evening.
Thank you
Appreciate it.
all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I mean, you guys had to put up with that, so you're on.
So your next agenda item, as I explained, I think in my report, I neglected to get this on for in time, 48 hours in advance. But so I just put it on under topics not reasonably anticipated. This so that the board could have a chance to just be apprised of what's going on and the status of the road over at Claflin Farm Road.
Yeah.
And then at your next meeting,
There was only a couple things I remember, right? Wasn't much.
yeah, there was almost nothing. So you got, and I can bring it up
So
if you
question,
want me
is this
to,
a
but
public hearing?
no, not right now.
Okay,
I'm just giving the board an update as
Okay.
to where we are with it. At your next meeting, you'll have a formal public hearing on, and then you can take a vote to recommend road approval of the road at that time. So as-built plans have been submitted for the road, and as well as the legal language for the road itself to be accepted, legal description, excuse me. And then we're working on easement language as well. The developer's attorney is going to be connecting with town council to hammer out the final language for easements and things like that to be conveyed. But the as-built map has been submitted, and Stantec are peer review on it. These are his comments. I mean, he was good with pretty much everything. Common address. So the as-built plan has been submitted and reviewed by peer review, and it is all good. There were a couple comments that Dave, our peer review engineer, had on that's not it, on the development itself. One of them was the cross slope across a particular driveway as it intersects with the sidewalk does not necessarily meet the 5% ADA grade. And there was a property bound that was paved over within, I think, the sidewalk of the cul-de-sac, which is something that my understanding is that's been moved anyway, so that's not really an issue. And then there is a fence that one of the new owners put up that is potentially within the stormwater easement to get to the stormwater basin. So there's some sort of minor issues, but it has nothing to do with necessarily the road itself. As you can see, it's been reviewed and the peer review engineer is okay with it. I also did ask DPW to go out and take a look to make sure that they were all set with everything. Dennis Westgate has communicated to me, and I provided that to the board, that he's good with the road as well. He was gonna go check out the stormwater basin, but it's been too wet for him to get out there. with the
You can look
vehicle.
to make sure the fire trucks get in and out, no issues there.
Yeah,
So that, the first two items you mentioned have been taken care of, and the engineers are going out sometime this week to stake that property line for that homeowner.
Okay.
To move his fence.
great.
How much do we still hold the bond?
We still have some money for the peer review and, but yeah, no, I think at the,
You still have 10% of them.
yeah, 10%.
It's enough to cover.
Yeah.
Oh, God,
And the road is complete and
Road is complete. It's now been through
Dennis has approved.
2 winters.
2 winters.
2 winters.
That should be approved.
Did all those lots get sold?
Yes.
No, where the part of the guy's Swan was paved, should ask him if that's a great place for a basketball net. You can still go around. It's a great place to,
Exactly.
you might want to not move it.
All the open space has already been deeded over to the town too, so that's,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
One thing we should do, when we do open space or anything, we should probably deed it to the selectmen, make the selectmen responsible and designate it for recreation. Rather than give it to, one of the individual boards, we should probably give it to the selectmen and have them designate it for recreation, so we can make money out of it, whatever. So, oh, no, I think we don't designate who the,
I'm confused
It's
about
been
that.
going to conservation commission.
Yes, they're going to
right?
conservation. Why do you want it? That's-
if we get, I'm saying, if we get money, if we get a donation from a developer, we should probably give it to the selectmen and not to a specific
You mean a donation of land? But what,
money or anything.
but what if it's not suitable for a recreation to be
If-
trails?
Well, I'm saying if we decide to, if it's okay for the town to take it, we should be telling us, giving it to the selectmen. Because if they don't want it, we don't make it part of our vote.
And they could give it to conservation?
No, if the town, that's what I'm saying, if conservation says they want it, but the selectmen say they don't,
Okay,
what do we do? Selectmen should decide.
but the selectmen can decide to give it to conservation. It seems like we're adding an extra step. I don't know.
If we're taking something for recreational purposes and it's got any kind of a money value, we should give it to the people who run the money, the selectmen, and tell them it's put it in the recreational fund.
Is it relevant? I mean.
It may be relevant.
So sometimes the land is specifically given to the town for conservation purposes.
But not through the planning board's vote. When we,
Well, we've certainly seen like
Yeah.
Crossman's. The land was given to the town as conservation land.
I'll have to look at that because I'm being told that we're supposed to be giving it to the selectmen and not to the board of health.
Did we also,
Conservation.
Well, it's given to the town, yeah, under the care, custody, and control of the Conservation Commission. Which, one of the reasons we do that is to be sure that it has basically very strong protection against ever being developed.
Yeah.
Since it's being given to the town for conservation purposes.
But I think that's what we did with South Street, isn't it? With the solar farm? The solar farm up off of, at the pits, at the sand pits.
Well, they were just asking for trails there.
Okay,
I was told to check on the town to see if we can even do that. We're supposed to be giving it to the. Period. And all we can do is we can tell them that it's for recreational purposes, but it's just like traffic, like streetlights. We can tell you what design to put on a streetlight, but we can't tell you where to put them.
I thought in our subdivision plans, for example, I mean, I thought that was one
No,
of
so
the.
actually, let's get back
It was
to
open
Crossings.
space.
Was that an open space development?
No.
So the only open space development we've done is the Pulte, Glen Echo.
So, but in a subdivision, we required that you set aside open space.
Is it
Right,
Cobb's
yeah.
Creek also
Oh.
open space?
Cobbler's Creek.
Yeah, Cobb's.
No, Claflin was an open space development, that's right.
But a 100-acre parcel had a 10-acre open space that we required 10% open space, which takes away a lot, which they didn't want to, so they said, we'd rather just give you the money. So in that case,
I understand. So you're talking about land that's being set aside in the subdivision for recreational purposes pursuant.
right,
Okay,
Well,
but sometimes we get land for conservation purposes.
Did Governor's Landing give us land for conservation?
No, but they did agree to trails,
Just to have trails.
yeah, to make sure connected to,
and it wasn't a subdivision.
Yeah, well, yeah.
yeah, that's it.
Well, okay, I'm confused.
During a subdivision, if we implement that you have to set aside 10% of open
Yeah.
space, we have to give that control of the open space to the selectmen. Or if they say, why don't we just pay you? We can't say, all right, give that money to this one or that one.
So if we
That money
give-
goes into the town coffers.
So if we do an open space subdivision,
It's a different
And-
process.
Yeah, that is, I understand it. These, they're different.
That's, open space subdivision is houses in the middle and everything's open space.
Yeah.
That's not that's a whole different process. I'm talking about when we say we're taking it from you. We're saying that you gotta set aside 10% of your subdivision for us. We're taking it. But we're not taking it.
Doesn't the subdivision bylaw say you need to set it aside for recreational purposes?
For the people in the subdivision.
Right.
That's all our rules. And they say, that's stupid. We're not setting aside 10% of our land for people that have 2 acres and well, that's the law. What do you want to do about it? And that's.
Well, that's actually something then that our friends at CMRPC ought to be taking a look at.
Something like that. But I would
that's what
think,
happened at East Street, right? Because they
Yeah.
put the
yeah.
playground right in the middle of it or
I'm
something.
just told planning board's gonna be careful when we take money from, or take land away from an applicant. And then just give it away, have to give it to town. Because it was for the subdivision, it was for those people. And if it's not for them, it's for.
Have we ever done it since I've been on planning board?
No.
Okay. That's why I'm alien to me. It's sort of like, okay,
But if there's a few big subdivisions coming up, it'll come up.
okay.
What
And
else
this
you
is
got?
separate from the open space
So it's
subdivision.
very different.
Separate than senior housing, separate than open space.
Okay,
Those are all under
okay.
its own section.
Yeah, actually, I don't know, subdivision, Summers or Summer Street. There was 10% set aside.
The one off
There's
of
a
Grove
strip in
Street.
the back.
Yeah, the one next to the railroad track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There might have been one person said, sure, I will. But everybody else says, no, I don't want to do that.
Well, no, there's others where we've ended up with these tiny pieces.
What time we got?
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
Finances, the town's a little bit short. About a buck short, about a buck and a half short, 150 grand short. Is that what you heard in the budget?
For this year or next year?
2025.
I heard there was stress. I hadn't seen a number.
Are we
So
still?
we did get a,
Yes.
we got a message from the.
Do we want to adjourn the meeting first?
Hold on, I don't think we officially got a treasurer's. report.
This is the treasurer's report.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I've got nothing. I rely on Mike to tell me when we've got stuff. to do.
You haven't had any expenses yet. You will.
Okay.
Anything
Yeah,
else for,
Can I make a motion to adjourn?
you
I
can?
will say
Okay.
that
and then you can, so turn off and then we can have our conversation.
Meeting adjourned.